All right, class. First off, as always, good day. I'm glad you're here. Uh, Today's lesson is we're gonna start a new section, the Reconstruction. Now, the Civil War has ended. President Lincoln is assassinated. President Johnson is now the president, and now the real work comes in of now these people who were former slaves are now free. So what's going to happen now? Okay, so that's what this whole Reconstruction is about. All right, so since we have a new section, there's new essential questions. The first one is like, was the Reconstruction a success? We're going to find that out at the very end. You guys are going to basically justify it, see if it was. Should there be a limit of vetoes that a president is allowed to have? We're going to be talking about that today, actually. The next one is, was President Johnson treated fairly? You're going to see what happened to him, and you make the judgment whether he was treated fairly or not. And lastly, was Grant's presidency a success? Now, the thing is, here in America, we love our generals, and especially if they're wartime generals. So, Washington, Eisenhower, people like that. Grant is one of those two. He is considered the hero of the Civil War, besides Lincoln. He's the next guy. Now, today's lesson, the objectives, we're going to analyze the meaning of the 14th Amendment. We're going to examine the effectiveness and meaning behind the Freedmen's Bureau. And we're going to create an argument on legitimacy of Southerners taking a loyalty oath. Okay. Now, your warm-up is going to be a little bit different for the next couple weeks. You guys are going to be taking an LPAC test. Okay. Now, in class, what I've done is basically is to help you get better at writing. This first week in class, I was really hands-on. I really helped out, gave topics, things like that. The bad thing about this video is it's only one way, me talking to you. I can't hear what you're saying, what you're thinking. And the thing is, it's going to be a little bit hard. This is one of those times, this month, that you should really try to be in class on time, especially for this LPAC at the very beginning question, because as a class, we, trying to get topics together, help you out, and then you guys start writing. So don't limit yourself to just what I say right now, but think to yourself, okay? The question is, think about a time when you were a child. How has your life changed from when you were a child to now? Okay, so try to time yourself for 5 minutes to writing. Okay, just pure writing. Okay, but before you start thinking about topics. Okay, think about like, how have you changed? Well, besides the obvious, your height, your weight, things like that. That's too easy. Think about like, um, what did you do to entertain yourself when you were a kid? Did you watch TV shows like SpongeBob and things like that? Or did you play with dolls, action figures? Do you still do that now? Do you still watch SpongeBob to entertain yourself for like hours on end? Do you still play with dolls, action figures, things like that, or you do something else? Okay. Um, your like one of the big ones I've seen a lot of students talk about is responsibility. How has your responsibility changed from when you were a kid till now? Your self-image, how you look at yourself, when you were a kid and now, and not just like inner looking at yourself, but like outer as well, what you're wearing, things like that. Um, Even self-care, like how many times do you take a shower now as opposed to when you were a kid? Did you like taking a shower when you were a kid as opposed to now? Um, what about your like hair and the way you smell? Did you care back then? What about now? Things like that. So, like I said, don't limit yourself to just what the topics I gave right now. Think about other things that you have noticed from when you were like 6, 7, 8 years old till now. How have you changed? Okay. So, again, give yourself like 5 minutes. Try to get the topics in paragraphs. You know, say one about the way you looked, your clothing, second one about what you entertain yourself with, and try to write as much as you can. Well, uh, in 5 minutes. Okay, just let loose. Okay, when you're finished, once that 5 minutes go by, put on your phone, time it, things like that. Um, but this is going to be your bar. Okay, next week, let's see if you can do better. The week after that, let's see if you can do better. The main thing with this whole LPAC thing is that you try to get better each time. That's what our goal is. It's not to make you just write and write about stuff. It's for you to get better. Next week, the topic will be different. Okay. And even if, like I said, if you, like I told other classes, even if you just wrote one sentence more next week, that's an improvement. If your grammar has gotten better, if you put your ideas together better, that's improvement. That's what we're looking for. Okay. So go ahead, time yourself, write it out. Okay. But we're going to be pause the video, but we're going to be moving on in 3, 2, 1. Now, if you look at the Google Classroom, you'll see a thing called the extra credit. That's for this grading period. You guys have a chance to get some extra credit, and the story is basically on the what happened to Booth after he shot Lincoln, right? Because we ended with that. We looked at that stuff last week about Lincoln. The extra credit is about what happened to Booth, what happened to the other conspirators. Now, this is the last thing I show you on there, mainly because this is a very important historical picture. Because if you look to the left, that woman hanging there, that is the first woman hung by the U.S. government. All right, because back then women were treated differently, things like that, more respectful. Um, and the thing was, people were like, "You can't hang a woman. You can't hang a woman." But some people were like, "No, no, we just can't let her go because she's a woman. No, she was part of this group. She's gonna hang with them." And if you watch the extra credit video, at the very end, you'll hear if she really was part of that group or not. So Reconstruction. This is basically for any time after a war when a country rebuilds itself. That's what's happening in the U.S. We're going through a Reconstruction. April 15th, 1865, Andrew Johnson is sworn in as president. Lincoln had died at like 7:55 in the morning. About like hour later, Andrew Johnson is sworn in as president. Okay. The newly freed African Americans, the ones who were slaves, now they're free because the war's over and stuff like that. They became known as freedmen. Now, here's the thing. There were some people who said, "Well, what if we free all these slaves? What's going to happen next?" Well, obviously they're going to be free, right? But the second thing is, what's going to happen to them? Because you have to remember, now that they're free, it's like, well, the plantation owners are going to be like, "Well, you, you can't stay here. You got to go. You're free, so go." They're going to be like that. And that's what happened. They did that. They basically said, "You're free, so get out of here." you know. So these guys have no homes. They have no food. They own nothing. Because remember, they were slaves. They had nothing. So what happened was the government said, okay, we need to set up a program to help these guys out. And that became known as the Freedmen's Bureau. Okay. This program was set up to help feed, clothe the newly freed slaves with army surplus stuff. Okay. About 300,000 people came in every day. Okay. And it wasn't the same 300,000 every single day. They would give them some food for like several days, things like that. You give them some clothing. Um, but another really important thing that happened was that a lot of these plantation owners, they needed field hands. And they knew that these newly freed slaves, they had no other skills besides working on the field. They couldn't do anything else really. That's all their life was working on the fields. So what they tried to do, some of them, is tried to hire them back, but like pay them very little, make them work long hours, you know, and the Freedmen's Bureau stepped in and said, no, no, we want a contract that says they're going to work these hours, they're going to get paid this much, you know, per week, and you cannot charge them for using tools because that's the thing that they used to do. They would try to do that to say, hey, well, you're going to borrow my rake, I'm going to charge you 50 cents. Because anywhere you go to work, they don't charge you for using a mop. They don't charge you for basically using the stuff you need to work there. You know, if you're working at Burger King, McDonald's, they don't charge you for the spatula that you need to flip the hamburgers. They provide that for you, you know. So that's what the Freedmen Bureau did. Helped them with food, helped them with clothing, and helped them with their contracts, with their jobs and stuff like that. All right, so look at that map really quick, and you'll see in the red, that is the states that were separated from the United States during the Civil War. Okay? Now, there were some Northerners who felt, you know what? Those former slaves, they should get the land that they worked on. Those plantation land, they should get a part of it because they never got paid for the time they were slaves. Right now they have nothing. So if you give them some land, then they'll have property. They'll, tend to the farm. They'll, you know, put the food, plant the food, things like that. They can either keep the food or sell it. Excuse me. Um, and they could even make their own home on that land. So they could basically take care of themselves. But then there was other people who said no, 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 because the thing is, if you take that land from those white people, who are they going to attack? Because they're going to attack somebody. They're going to be mad. Somebody just straight up took their land. Now they're homeless. Now they have nothing. Who are they going to attack? The people in the north? No. They're going to attack the African Americans in the south. You know, and on top of that, it's like goes against one of our country's greatest things that you can own a piece of property, a piece of land on our country, and that's yours. The government can't just take it for no reason. There has to be a law that says that, you know, for whatever reason they need your land. Even then, even though the government can use your land, you know, thing called eminent domain, they still have to pay you. These guys are not saying not pay them; they're saying straight take the land away. Right? So it kind of goes against what our country is about. But here's the thing: March 29th, 1865, President Johnson grants amnesty to all Southern whites if they pledge an oath of loyalty to the Union. If they do that, they're forgiven of everything that they've said or done, and they can reclaim their land back. Now, the thing is, a lot of these Southerners are like, so all we have to do is just say, yes, I promise to be faithful to the country, this and that, and we get our land back? I'm like, yeah, I promise to be faithful to the country and all the law, la 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 la. They say what they want them to say. Do they mean it? Probably not. Now, the states, on the other hand, had to do some other stuff. The states had to basically have a new governor because you have to remember the war just ended. A lot of the governors in those red states, they basically ran on the platform of slavery is good, slavery should be legal, things like that. So the U.S. government's like, get them out. Put someone else in who's going to say slavery is bad. Slavery had to be out of every state. No ands, if, or buts. No slavery in any form. and a new state constitution had to be created, basically saying that all men are created equal, that the slavery is horrible, it's just wrong, and it's outlawed in our state. Once they do that, then they were allowed back into the United States. So here's my question to you. Do you believe that former slaves should have gotten some land from the plantations that they worked on? What do you think? Okay. Why or why not? Now here's a little twist for you. If you say yes, yes, they should get land, how would they divide that? How would you divide it? Would it be by whoever worked that land the longest? You know, they get more land. Would it be by, person, the amount of people, and then divide that evenly? Would you do it by families? This family gets this family gets that. How would you divide it? All right, so there's a little trick for you. So how would you do it? How would you think would be fair? Okay. Um, so if you're still writing, hit pause, but we're moving on in 3, 2, 1. So what happened is near the end of 1865, Mississippi passed this thing called the Black Codes. Now, these are laws that forbid African Americans from leaving their job, leaving the place that they're renting from, or even owning land. Um, so, like if a job said they didn't have a contract, you know, the job could be like, well, we're going to pay you, said $3, $2 a week. If the African American guy was like, I'm going to leave, they're like, you can't quit. That's a law. If let's say the rent it jumps up, they can't leave. They still have to stay there. So the thing is, it got to the point where what the Mississippi tried to do was basically keep the African Americans in debt. And it's like, well, how do I pay this off? Well, you could work for me. Basically, they may have them working for free. That's another thing of slavery. That's what they tried to do. Try to do it legally through like debt. Oh, he owes me money, so he has to work that off. Other states joined in too. And all of them were southern states, of course. December 18th, 1865, the 13th Amendment, which said slavery is wrong and is no longer allowed in our country, is ratified. It becomes a law of the land. Now, there's 3 people that Johnson didn't like. Thaddeus Stephen, Charles Sumner, and Wendell Phillips. Now, these guys were basically saying, okay, yes, slavery is done. All right, awesome. Now, let's give these African Americans the right to vote. President Johnson basically told these guys and told the country, these guys are traitors to our country. There were some people in the North who were like, how are they traitors? Just because they feel that African Americans have the right to vote? They're traitors? So people start noticing things about Johnson. And another thing they noticed was that he vetoed the Civil Rights Bill. Right? The Civil Rights Bill basically says that African Americans are going to be given full citizenship, and along with that, they get rights as citizens in our country as long as they were born here. Johnson says, no, I don't like that. He vetoes it. Basically saying he doesn't agree with it. Now, here's the thing. In the House of Representatives and in the Senate, they have to pass a bill. So like this paper right here, this is the bill. They have to pass it. They pass it, and it goes to the president. If the president vetoes it, saying he doesn't agree with it, it goes back. But that's not it. Okay, that doesn't kill the bill. If the Senate and the House do not change a single word, and they're able to get 2/3 of both groups to agree to it or more, 2/3 or more, then it gets passed. The president can no longer veto it because basically that's the voice of the people, the House and the Senate. If they both agree, 2/3 majority or higher agree that this is what they want, then it becomes law. And that's what happens with the Civil Rights Act. They override President Johnson's veto. Now, like I said, if they change one single word in that document, then it's a new document. And the president can veto it again because it's a new document. But if they don't change it and they get the 2/3, it becomes law. So June 13th, 1866, President Johnson and a lot of other Southern representatives are kind of a little upset that the 14th Amendment passes. Okay. What the 14th Amendment means is that it defines what it means to be a citizen. Basically, if you're born in this country, you have every single right to be here. You have every right as a citizen of this country. You can expect the same things whether you're white, black, brown, yellow, green, purple, doesn't matter what color your skin is. You are a citizen of our country. If you're born here, you have every right as everyone else who's born here. Doesn't matter the skin color. That can be whatever. So this means that everyone, all the African Americans, have rights, not just national, but state and local laws. They cannot be denied their rights. Okay. Now, in the Constitution, if you remember from last semester, there was a thing called the 3/5 clause that said for every 5 black people, it equals 3 white people. Okay. Because of the 14th Amendment, it swipes that 3/5 clause to the side. It's still in our Constitution to this day, but because of the 14th Amendment, it makes that 3/5 clause obsolete. Basically, we don't look at it anymore. We don't, we barely acknowledge it in history now. It's because, again, the 14th Amendment says, no, blacks, whites, equal. There it is. Now, here's the problem. With that being said, and remember, the House of Representatives, the more people you have, the more powerful your state. And that's what happens. Now that all these African Americans are counted as citizens, the southern states start gaining so much power. Now here's the thing where it gets kind of like, ooh, bad. In the South, yeah, the African Americans are counted as people, but they still don't have the right to vote. The people who do are these white people who live down there, and some of them are very racist. So that leads to our next thing, which is a question. With the South having more power in the House of Representatives, what do you think some issues that might come up in the future? Now, remember, like I told you, the Freedmen Bureau, the 13th Amendment, and the 14th Amendment passed like that because the North had the power to get those laws and get those programs started to help African Americans. Now, in one part of the House, in one part of Congress, in the House of Representatives, now the South has power. So, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think that that they're going to try to stop any more rights for African Americans? Do you think that they're going to maybe not stop them, but like slow it down? Prevent some things? Because remember, when a law has to go through, it has to go through the Senate and the House of Representatives. So one side's for free, African Americans should be free and have the rights. The other side is now like they shouldn't. So what kind of problems do you think might come up? Okay. So the writing prompts on the bottom. Pause the video so you can write it out. But we're moving on in 3, 2, 1. So here is your exit ticket question. Remember, pick one of these. The first one is, how would you explain the 14th Amendment to a 10-year-old? Okay, so what does it mean to be a U.S. citizen? Break it down. What kind of rights do you have? Things like that. Besides feeding, clothing, and getting African Americans jobs, what else do you think the Freedmen's Bureau could have done? Now, this one, like I told the other classes, remember, African Americans been just working the fields, treated horribly, not allowed to be taught anything. Their health is probably abysmal. Um, they have nothing, and this group is trying to help them. So, besides feeding, clothing, and getting them jobs, what else could they have done? Okay. And the last one is this: other than having the Southerners take a loyalty oath, what else could they have been made to do to show absolute loyalty to the United States and its laws? Okay, what else could have been done? Okay, it's one thing to just say, yeah, I promise. It's another thing to actually show it. So what could they have done? Okay. So that's it for this lesson. Hopefully you learned something new. I do apologize for the time. I know this is a little bit longer than those other videos, but again, it's about that LPAC. So hopefully you did like you were told. Um, and like I said, you know, next week let's try to do better. Okay. So with that being said, you guys take care. You be safe. All right. I'll see you guys later.